Municipal IQ has warned of a spike in service delivery protests across the country ahead of the elections. Residents of Alexandra have been protesting for over a week. In fact, they've been protesting since last week intermittently, while demonstrations began in Beckersdale yesterday. The group monitoring municipalities says the protests are anticipated ahead of an increase, or they're anticipated to increase until elections on the 8th of May. For more on this, I'm joined by economist Karen Hisa. She is with Municipal IQ. Hi there, Karen. Thank you for joining us. That is not quite Karen. We've shown you Atim Tongana. There's Karen. Hi there, Karen Hisa. Thank you for your time. So, are service delivery protests timed to coincide with the elections actually effective?
In some ways they are. I think the obvious solution or the obvious answer as to why we have a spike is because there is media attention. So it does draw attention to complaints. The risk around them, though, is that there can be allegations of political instigation, and the grievances, which may be very real, could be dismissed as electioneering, and these can be obscured. So in part, they're genuine grievances, and in part, there could be an expedience. Based on that, then, how do we tell the two apart? It's actually impossible. I think there's often a bit of both. So on the one hand, communities may feel especially aggrieved before elections. They may become particularly aware of injustices or problems just because there is quite a heightened sensitivity to this. And on the other hand, there may also be individuals within communities who are pushing particular agendas. So I think the one thing we can say, though, is that where protests take place, there are usually grievances which shouldn't be dismissed. Just looking at some of the data from 2004 to 2019, the first quarter of this year, 2018 had quite a significant number of demonstrations. I think something to the tune of 237 service delivery related demonstrations. What was so problematic, let's frame it that way, in 2018? What upset communities so much? I think one of the issues that we've seen from 2017 and 2018 is concerns raised around the economy and unemployment, which of course is not the domain of local government. But we've seen quite a few protests where communities have demanded not only services that are required of local government, but their expectations of job creation and employment, and this coincides with the recession. So I think it's quite a complex picture, but the context is one in which communities are feeling financial and economic pressures. The Eastern Cape, over the same period, 2018, overtaking Gauteng as the country's hotspot as far as service delivery protests are concerned. What is going on in the Eastern Cape specifically that led to that spike? I think the Eastern Cape is a sort of double whammy. So we have a picture, especially in Nelson Mandela Bay, which we see in other metros, where there's quite pronounced pressure on the metros to deliver housing, growing informal settlements and demands around that. And then further afield, we see more basic services demanded around water and sanitation in rural communities, or we see systems that have been in place starting to fail because of a lack of maintenance. And there are obviously also pronounced pressures around the drought in communities like Makanda. Another interesting figure that I picked up from Municipal IQ is that from the overall look at the demonstrations and what's at the heart of them, only 4% of them are tinged with some sort of xenophobic sentiment, which I would imagine for a lot of South Africans would come as a surprise, given what we read and see on our television screens. There's, of course, two caveats to that. So the first is that that's where it's been reported. There may well be xenophobic incidences that haven't been captured in the media, so that's probably understated to that extent. The other, relates purely to service delivery protests, so where there have been just pure xenophobic attacks, which aren't a part or a byproduct of service delivery protests, these aren't being captured. So it's not really a picture of xenophobic attacks, but it's a sort of suggestion around trends in xenophobic elements and byproducts of protests. And I think it is quite encouraging that even though it's a scourge and something that's of great concern in South Africa, we see in the majority of cases that foreign nationals aren't attacked, and that the focus is around service delivery per se. We're dealing, Karen, at the moment with a political football between the ANC and the DA in the Joburg
Metro around the demonstrations in Alexandra, one saying, no, you are responsible for the collapse of services. No, you are. But when you do an analysis as Municipal IQ of the response of the various political parties and the leaders they have in office in the various areas, do you get the feeling or the sense that our politicians, once in office, respond adequately to the anger of communities?
It's a very difficult question around elections. So I think typically there is, as soon as an issue becomes escalated or community reaches a sort of critical mass, you will get a response. Unfortunately, what we're seeing in Alexandria is that we see almost a standoff where it's become so politicized that there's a reticence on the part of Mayor Mashaba to respond. So I think under ordinary circumstances, there might have been a greater response, and ironically because there would be less media attention, less focus on the community itself.
Karen Heiser from Municipal IQ, thank you for your time.